Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome into another edition of the Steelers Fix podcast. My name is Jeremy Benson. I'm joined by Corey Eckenroth at Steely_McPitt. How's it going, Corey? Ready to talk some Steelers this mini camp week?
We got a lot to talk about this week, don't we, Jeremy? We got a signing that happened last week. Some dude joined the team. I can't remember what his name was.
I know he's probably down a few spots on the depth chart somewhere. At a position that's of little note, like fullback or something like that, right? I can't remember who it was, but no, we talked about him at length in our last episode of the Steelers Fix. Go back and check that out. We decided, kind of tried to determine which quarter or what the records would be for which quarterback would start between Aaron Rodgers and Mason Rudolph, assuming Aaron Rodgers would sign. We got that one out on Thursday. Thursday morning, literally hours before Aaron Rodgers, the announcement was made that he was going to be showing up the next day to sign his deal with the Steelers. So if you want to go back and check out what we think Aaron Rodgers, what the difference is for him being the Steelers starting quarterback, go check it out on a previous episode of The Fix here on the Steel Curtain Network. But Corey, now that it's official, just give me your thoughts. You've seen him a couple days at mini camp here as well. Your thoughts on the Aaron Rodgers official signing by the Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think I naysayed all throughout this offseason. I wanted to give myself a reason to believe that Aaron Rodgers could really do something with this team. And then Omar Khan went out and got him for less than $20 million, which that came out of nowhere. And at that kind of price tag, I'm willing to buy in for whatever Aaron Rodgers can do. However far that train can go, I'm on it. And it's given me a good reason to believe, because Omar Khan and the Steelers have not hamstrung themselves financially. If something were to happen to him, now that they have some room financially that they can breathe, that they've got to go do something else, I think that this is just a win all around for everybody. It's time to get excited. It's time to get on the train. It's time to get going.
Yeah. I mean, I agree. I've been more of a proponent of the move than maybe most as the offseason has progressed here, because I just felt like he's a good fit for what they want for 2025. And, it's, if you listen to anything that I've put out, you know what I'm going to say next. I don't think he hangs over their heads beyond this year. The contract I thought was going to be in this range. So I was, pleasantly, not surprised, I guess, but just expected that the Steelers were going to get him on the cheap. And I mean, he's cheaper than Daniel Jones, right? Maybe that's a little unexpected, but he's cheaper than Daniel Jones for the Colts, he's going to end up being their starter with Anthony Richardson ailing, and probably even if Anthony Richardson wasn't ailing. But that being said, Aaron Rodgers, now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers, I've never said they're winning a Super Bowl or they're competing for an AFC championship game with Aaron Rodgers. I don't believe that that's the case, but a playoff team, yeah. Are they going to be in the mix in their division most of the year? Yeah, probably. Are they going to win double-digit games again in 2025? Yeah, probably. Does Aaron Rodgers give them their best shot at winning a playoff game in 2025? More so than they've had in a while? Yeah, probably. So all reasons that I thought it was a good move to make. You're not jeopardizing your ability to go get a quarterback next year in the draft. I don't believe any more so than if Mason Rudolph was starting. What's 4 draft slots further down the board going to do if you're trying to trade up into the top 10? You're going to have to give up big bucks to do it anyway. So the Steelers' future is still laid out, but their present looks a little bit better on offense, probably, with Aaron Rodgers here. And we can get to the defensive side of the ball and one Trent Jordan-Watt not being there. But I think, Aaron Rodgers was definitely the headline over the course of this week, but TJ Watt, that's another big headline that needs to be discussed here.
Absolutely. TJ Watt not showing up. I mean, this is kind of the second time. Well, the first time it was a sit-in kind of deal where he was, still with the team and working out. This one completely different. It is, he is away from the team and making a statement for himself that he wants a new deal. And we can have discussions about that. Because at his age, do you dare have the conversation that do you possibly move him?
Yeah. Yeah. I if it were any other team, that's a valid conversation. But the
For how
Pittsburgh
this
Steelers,
team values its outside
yeah,
linebackers, for what he means to this team,
and
for
how they treat their vets, their superstar vets, right?
for the production that he still has, regardless of his down year last year.
Yeah.
I think it's all. I think it's still. I think you give him a contract still. That's me
Yeah.
personally. I think you give him a contract, maybe 3 years.
Yep.
I don't know if I feel any more comfortable than that because he is starting to get to that back end of his career.
Yep.
I think if you were to compare regimes from the Bill Cowher era to the Mike Tomlin era, I think this is a situation where you do start to have that conversation of moving him, because Bill Cowher was known for getting rid of those players, right there at the cusp of having a start to having a decline where he can get a ton of value in trading them right before that happens.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
here with
I think that, like, when you look at the timeline of how the Steelers probably wanting to operate here, and we talked about Mike Tomlin's timeline in a previous show as well. Like, his contract ends after 2027.
Mhm.
So I think if you give TJ Watt a 3-year extension on his deal, so that gives you the rights to TJ Watt through 2028. If you do that, you can spread out some of those cap hits like you need to make it work at that high price point. You get him through his age 34 season, which by that point, yeah, he's probably slowing down. But after 2027, you can move on from him. If you want to win a Super Bowl with a rookie quarterback, or not a rookie, but a franchise young quarterback that you drafted in 2026, if you want to win a Super Bowl with that guy as early as his second year, if you want to maximize what his potential and your team's potential in that rookie contract, then you want TJ Watt as a part of this team. It's just a no-brainer. And they have the capital, I believe, in 2026 and 2027 NFL drafts to do the moves, to perform the moves necessary to get up in the first round next year to get their quarterback without moving on from TJ Watt. So um, I think it makes sense to sign him, even though it would also make sense to move him. I just think that the way Pittsburgh operates and what he means to the organization and what you're hoping to accomplish inside of this Mike Tomlin current contract, which ends after 2027, I think you want to maximize your Super Bowl window if you can create one. And you do that by having TJ Watt on this team.
Yeah, and I think the only legitimate player that you have a conversation that I was talking about where they're getting older and you might move them would be Cam, especially
Yeah.
now that they just drafted a first rounder.
Yep.
But I also don't even see that happening. You know, with Cam, he's going to ride off into the sunset as a Steeler. They're not going to move him. They're going to give
Yep.
him that honor. So I think it's just a matter of when Cam wants to go. And
I think he's under contract through 2027 right now
right.
as well.
So
So
it's all lining up, Jeremy.
it all lines up exactly. So TJ Watt has to be a part of that if you want to win anything. You'd think, unless Jack Sawyer's like the second coming of TJ Watt or something like that, and I don't think we can expect that as a third round pick or a fourth round pick.
I'm not going to put anything past Nick Herbig yet either.
True. I saw somebody said put some sand in his pants and let TJ Watt go. I don't know about that, but I think I think as a pass rusher, a situational pass rusher, you've got a really deep group there with Nick Herbig kind of leading the way as your third guy. And we're going to get into the roster here in this episode because this is our first episode of a 3-part series that we did last year. I did it with Andrew Wilbar. Corey's taken over for the summer, obviously, while Andrew is traveling, and we're going to dive into 2025 roster rivalry series here. This is part 1. It's Steelers versus Ravens. It's the division champions from 2024. It's the team everybody else in the AFC North is chasing. We're going to compare those rosters here, starting in the second half of the show in just a second. Corey, I did want to get your thoughts though on mini camp so far, guys who have been flashing. If you've been seeing any of the highlights coming out of camp or out of the Southside facilities, where there's plenty of reporters taking notes, sending out videos. Anything? Let's go non-Aaron Rodgers takes, because we talked about him already. Any non-Aaron Rodgers takes from minicamp so far?
I mean, that's pretty much all it's been so far. So you're putting me under the gun to try to figure out something else here.
Go find something else, Corey. Go find
right,
something else.
right. No, I mean, I think the running backs are looking good. I think the running backs are looking really good. I can't wait to see. I'm really hoping for the development of the offensive line, because I really want to see Jaylen Warren and Caleb Johnson succeed. I really want to see Caleb Johnson succeed as a rookie. I think he can. I think it's all set up for him, especially as a backup, because he's not going to have a ton of expectations on him. I think he's walking into a perfect fit scenario-wise in Arthur Smith's system. So I want to see more in the preseason for sure. I can't wait for the preseason now that I've kind of got a taste of what Caleb Johnson has in store for us. But I'm interested on your take here. I want to ask you, do you see Jaylen Warren being the bell cow back? Do you think that he still has that pop in his step as the RB1 now that he's taken the mantle? Or do you think that now that the focus is on him, teams can key on him and slow him down a bit?
So, like from the outset, when they drafted Caleb Johnson, I was like, this guy's going to end up with more carries by the end of the year than Jaylen Warren. Just the nature of the style of play, the physical prototype, the workload management that they're going to have to utilize. But I think early in the season, it's going to be a like 60-40 to Jaylen Warren's side of things. And then by the end of the year, it's probably 60-40 the other way. And I think Jaylen Warren's going to be absolutely a huge part of this offense and its success. So in the end, it's probably like very much a 50-50 duo back there. There's not going to be much room for anybody else. I mean, Kenneth Gainwell's on this team. He's going to take some snaps, but I think you would lean more towards him taking some of Jaylen Warren's snaps than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
And Cordero Patterson, there's no way he's on this team by the end of training camp. So I don't know, Corey. I don't see this as Jaylen Warren's backfield. I see it as a true two-headed monster. And I'm leaning towards the rookie outpacing him in carries, at least, maybe not receptions, maybe not even in touches overall by the end of the year, but outpacing him in carries by the end of 2025.
I like that. I like that prognostication there. I really do. I like Caleb Johnson. I'm really excited to see what he does. I think once I see him in the preseason, I'll be as sold as you are. But I do agree. I think he's going to get a huge share of carries. I think that Jaylen Warren is going to completely thrive in this offense, regardless of whether it's a number one or number two.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that either back is going to provide you with a dynamic that is going to complement each other very well.
Yep, I agree. Arthur Smith's going to ride this running game. And if the best version of the Steelers offense in 2025 is a highly efficient running game that doesn't force Aaron Rodgers to throw 35, 40 times a game. If he's sitting at 25 to 30 pass attempts a game and you're running the ball like you're averaging 150 yards a game or something like that, which I think would have been top 10 in the league last year for rushing average per game, then you're cooking. You're doing exactly what you want to do as Arthur Smith and the Steelers offense. So they're going to be very important. I think if I had to pick like one talking point that's come out of training camp that I just like, or not training camp, excuse me, mini camp that I just like to hit on, Zach Azzani came out on Wednesday and said, Calvin Austin's our wide receiver too. And we feel like he's ready for that. His skill set is very different from DK Metcalf. So he's going to be able to thrive underneath while DK takes the top off defenses and stuff. Okay. So I tweeted it out. I'm going to just quote it basically. 2 words, coach speak. I mean, what kind of position coach would Zach Azani be if he went out there and said, I don't know. I don't think Calvin Austin is built for this. We're going to have to go do something at wide receiver to round out this roster because I just don't know if Boy can handle it. That's never going to happen. No coach in the NFL does that. And Omar Khan has sat back there and said, we have full faith in Kenny Pickett and we want George Pickens to be a member of this team. We see DK Metcalf and George Pickens as a wide receiver duo in 2025. And both of those guys are no longer on the roster, Corey. So let these coaches talk all they want. It doesn't mean a thing. The Pittsburgh Steelers are hunting for a wide receiver too. I would expect that move to be made at some point. Calvin Austin is not the wide receiver 2 on this team by the start of 2025 if the Steelers have their way. But you cannot stand in front of the media and say, nope, don't believe in Calvin Austin as our wide receiver 2. I really prefer if he was our 3.
I would agree with you, except that I just did a little bit of homework as you were on your soapbox there for a minute. And I'm going to give you these stats. Okay. Wide receiver 1, 5'9", 162 pounds. Wide receiver 2, 5'10", 182 pounds. Wide receiver 1, pretty obvious, it's Calvin Austin III. Do you want to know who wide receiver 2 was? Tyler Lockett.
Okay, Tyler Lockett. Okay. I was going to say Zay Flowers.
So I think that in this system, DK Metcalf is going to match up really well with Calvin Austin III in the way that they scheme their routes. I think that Arthur Smith is going to be able to do a lot with Calvin Austin III. I don't think they're BSing us right now.
Okay. All right. Well, agree to disagree, but this isn't that I don't like Calvin Austin, but I like him in his role where you're not putting the pressure on him to be the one to take pressure off of the wide receiver 1, DK Metcalf.
I'd love to see him be wide receiver 3 in a Antonio Brown light role where he has just absolutely insane footwork to just throw whatever DB he's got on his ankles and on his heels and just take whatever route he wants. That's the route. That's the role I want to see him take. However, if he's got to take wide receiver 2 because Roman Wilson quite isn't ready yet, which may be the whole thing in this, we might just be buying time until Roman Wilson's ready to step up and take that spot.
Sure.
So it's possible that Roman Wilson and Calvin Austin III could be interchangeable at 2-3, and we might see a lot of that in the formation, in the pre-snap in a lot of the pre-snap motions. So there's going to be a lot of options with those receivers that they've got, the slew of the number 2s that they've got over on the other side.
Yeah. Very true. I look at both of those guys and I think that they're a combo unit to get to wide receiver 2 numbers, right? If they're the ones that you're relying on for that. But that's why I see them making a move there. Just for reference here. So, okay, this is just rough numbers here. The NFL, 32 teams. If you have 32 wide receiver 1s and then you have 32 wide receiver 2s in the league, that gives you 64 total wide receivers. DeAndre Hopkins was wide receiver 64 in yards last year. So he's kind of the last of what you'd consider a wide receiver 2 in the NFL, right? Mm-hmm. He had 615 receiving yards on 48 receptions. So can Calvin Austin give you that? Can Calvin Austin give you that as a low end wide receiver 2 in 2025?
In an Arthur Smith run heavy offense? No.
Okay.
No, just because of the scheme. He's not going to see the type of volume that DeAndre Hopkins is. Well, DeAndre Hopkins is going to see the volume either because he's on Baltimore. But so I don't know. He might see the same volume as DeAndre Hopkins this year.
Yeah.
But that to say, him being in the Arthur Smith offense, Calvin Austin III, he's just not going to have the same volume. It's more about the whole premise of being a receiver in that offense is all about efficiency, making sure that you catch every single thing that's thrown to you.
Right.
And it has been historical that the Arthur Smith offense has been dependent upon that one wide receiver one as the heavy operator in that offense. It'll be interesting to see if Arthur Smith has learned how to open it up. Now that he's been a head coach, kind of been around the mill a couple times. Let's see what he's learned now that he's got some better tools at his disposal. Here in year 2.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I can live with it in 2025 if that's the end outcome. But I would prefer if the Steelers had the combination of Calvin Austin III and Roman Wilson as their wide receiver 3 to some degree or another. For reference, the Green Bay Packers, a lot of talk has been made about their wide receivers, right, as potential trade targets for Pittsburgh. So their pass catcher number 4 last year, I'm including tight ends in that, was Romeo Dobbs, and he had 601 receiving yards on 46 receptions. So right there with DeAndre Hopkins, who was their wide receiver, or was the wide receiver 2 last year for, oh man, who was he? Was he with the he wasn't with Baltimore. Who did he come from? Who was he playing with? Oh, the Chiefs. He was with the Chiefs last year. So Romeo Dobbs, he could come in. He was their pass catcher number 4 in Green Bay last year, and he put up wide receiver 2 numbers. So I'd say go get a guy like that, right? And sign him to a 3-year deal, have him be a running mate with DK for the next 3 seasons while you bring in a new quarterback next year and try to roll with that.
The only problem with Romeo Dobbs is, and I had him on my fantasy team, by the way, and I was very happy with his production. You already have a bunch of clones of him on the team. You've just got to find the right one to develop into that. So
would you say that he's a guy that they have a lot of clones of? He's 6'1", 200 pounds. I mean, he's more like a Juju Smith-Schuster type.
He's got a couple of inches, but it's kind of the same smaller body type. It's the stocky build,
6'2", 204. Yeah. So he's, I don't know. I view that as like more of a power forward type receiver personally, but definitely not in the same vein as like the 5'10", 5'11" of Roman Wilson and 180 pounds. He's a bigger body than that to me, but yeah, I mean, it's a good conversation to have. And I think that the Steelers, they have a chance to be pretty good either way, but I think if you're wanting to maximize this year, go get somebody. And to me, that's somebody that you would want to have on this team beyond 2025 as well, to develop with a quarterback that you're going to draft next year. Corey, let's go ahead and take our break so we can come back and talk the title of the show, the roster rivalry here. We had a lot of news to get to from minicamp and whatnot, but I do want to compare these 2 rosters, the Steelers and the Ravens, to see where this team sits next to the defending division champs. So don't go anywhere, listeners. We will be right back after this. All right, we're back here on the Steelers Fix podcast. It's Jeremy Betts at the Betts 93. Give me a follow. We're live streaming this on my Twitter feed right now. I see a few people watching it there. Appreciate you guys doing that. Share it. Subscribe to the Steel Curtain Network podcast channel, wherever you get your podcasts. I'm here with Corey Eckenroth at Steely_McPitt. Give him a follow here on X as well. Good content from Corey on Steel Curtain Network, and Fans First Steel City, the new Pittsburgh focused sports group there, here from Fans First Sports Network. And be sure to follow Fans First Sports Network wherever you get your podcasts, and go to ffsn.com for all of our written content as well. I write there, Corey writes there. a lot of other contributors. So check it all out. We've got everything NFL for you. We've got other sports as well, baseball, basketball, NBA finals going on right now. Hockey's starting to get back into our lives a little bit here. Baseball, obviously, MLB mid swing here. So no pun intended there, but it works. Corey, let's get into these rosters, man. Let's get into the Steelers and Ravens rosters. And we're not going to like break it down to the max here, but I do want to go position by position here, starting on the offensive side of the ball. And just to clarify a couple things here, we're looking at the entirety of the room for each position group. Okay. So I'm not saying we're gonna do this, but there's a world where if you like the combination of wide receivers from top to bottom that the Steelers have better than the combination of the Ravens receivers from top to bottom, then that there's a world where you can give the edge to the Steelers there, right? Or vice versa. If you like the Ravens at tight end better than you like the Steelers at tight end from the whole room, from a look at the whole room, then you can go with that as well. So, but obviously, high-end talent plays into this. Starting talent plays into this as well. We're looking at ourlads.com. We're looking at the projected starting rosters here and the depth for each position. So that's kind of where we're getting our information from for projected starting groups. But Corey, let's just dive into this. Let's start with the quarterbacks. And I think this one's a pretty clear answer. But you have on the Pittsburgh side of things, you have Aaron Rodgers as QB1, Mason Rudolph as QB2, primary backup. Will Howard is the rookie draft pick, 6th-round draft pick. He's going to probably end up being the QB3. And then I would assume Skylar Thompson lands on the practice squad if he makes the roster at all. He's going to be a cut that they'll probably bring back on the practice squad if they can. Compare that to one of the best quarterbacks in the entire NFL in Lamar Jackson for the Ravens. Cooper Rush is his primary backup free agent signing this year. And then you've got Devin Leary, a 6th-round pick in 2024 that's coming back on the roster here as QB3. They only have 3 quarterbacks as it stands. Again, considering the room, who gets the edge here for you at quarterback to start off this roster rivalry?
It's a tough one. I mean, I right now I'd have to say Lamar Jackson because he's established in the team that he's playing for. Aaron Rodgers, I believe, can work well within this system, and I think that he can play well enough to take this team to the playoffs. But Lamar Jackson already has 2 MVPs to his name and is coming off, another deep postseason run, more established as the starter with a more established running game coming back. So I just feel that the quarterback room in general in Baltimore is set up to succeed slightly better than the Pittsburgh Steelers as currently constructed. However, I think that looking through the depth of it, I think that the Steelers have better depth at the quarterback position if something were to happen. If these 2 teams were to match up, I like the matchup of Mason Rudolph over Cooper Rush in that matchup. I might even go to say I like if the running game is clicking and Will Howard is asked to be nothing more than a game manager, then I feel that he could probably do better than Cooper Rush as well.
Yep. I mean, I have basically nothing to add to that. Lamar Jackson puts it over the top for the Ravens for me. The depth, though, like if Lamar and Aaron Rodgers both get hurt this season, the Steelers are probably winning those matchups against the Ravens with Mason Rudolph as their primary backup compared to Cooper Rush as the Ravens' primary backup. You have to change the entire offense for Cooper Rush if you're Baltimore, if he has to step in and play. You probably don't have to do that if Mason Rudolph steps in for Aaron Rodgers, and Rudolph is familiar with that organization already. So, but Lamar Jackson, he's an all-pro. He's an MVP, and Aaron Rodgers is past those days. Lamar Jackson could win those accolades this year. Aaron Rodgers is not winning those accolades this year. So I give the edge to Baltimore just like you do. Moving on to running backs. This is an interesting one. Another one where I don't know, maybe I probably feel better about the Steelers' depth than the Ravens' depth, but it's Derrick Henry. So how can you go against the Ravens? You know, that's just difficult. Where are you going?
No, I mean it's Derrick Henry. That if there's anybody that might knock Lamar Jackson off his MVP status, it'd be Derrick Henry going for 2,200 yards or something ridiculous like
Sure.
that. But just like we were talking a couple of minutes ago, if they're a one-trick pony, if Derrick Henry were to have to miss time for some reason, I like the depth the Steelers have better than the Ravens. So I'd have to give the overall nod to the Steelers again in this instance.
Okay. Yeah. So let me ask you this for the running backs then. Is the depth more important with the running backs for you than obviously say quarterback? Because at quarterback you're hoping one guy touches the ball all year, but at running back multiple guys are going to touch the ball, so that depth matters a little bit more.
I think that having depth and variety in the types of play that they can play, just being a receiving running back that Kenneth Gainwell is, serves him better than what do they have? Michael Keaton or Keaton Mitchell as their third string
Yeah.
running back.
Justice Hill's there too. Yep.
And Caleb Johnson, we have yet to see what he can do, but the scouting report on him is that he's got pretty good hands. So
Yep.
I think that the overall talent level of the top three running backs for the Steelers is they're better athletes and they have more to offer in that capacity than say Derrick Henry, who's no slouch at catching the ball. But when Derrick Henry gets the ball, you know what he's going to do with it. He's running between the tackles.
Yeah. I agree with you, but all that said, I've got to go with Baltimore because of the Derrick Henry bump. We don't know what we're going to get out of Caleb Johnson yet. I mean, we feel pretty good about Caleb Johnson, but we don't know what we're going to get out of him. So I think I've got to ride.
Rookie of the year. That's what we're getting. Rookie of the year.
Stake that claim now. It's a hot take from Corey Eckenroth. Fire off the alarms. Hot take alert from Corey that Caleb Johnson's offensive rookie of the year 2025.
It's early June. I can take that back by the end of August.
Sure. The odds are probably really good on that if you're going to go bet that.
Well, speaking of betting, I know what I did see that I like. They still have the Steelers at 8.5 for the future.
Yeah.
So
bang that over.
Snatch that up and take that over. Hammer that over.
Or they'll be like 3 games over that, honestly.
They have a chance. They have a chance. I'm really starting to buy in. I really am. I'm really starting to buy in. I'm getting excited.
Yep. Cool. Okay, so you've got the Steelers and their depth. I'm taking the Ravens and their star power. And I like Justice Hill as a change of pace guy. He does a good job when he comes in, getting outside the box. He gives the Steelers heck. So I don't like. I mean I like it for Baltimore if I'm a Baltimore fan, but I don't like it as a Steelers fan. So I'll take that combo over Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren right now.
He adds to the lore of the Steelers, Ravens rivalry. I'm looking at this. He's been around since 2019, so he's been around for 6 years. Like he knows this rivalry at this point.
I remember I wanted him as the change of pace back. I think it was James Conner was still here in Pittsburgh in 2019. So yeah, he was because Le'Veon Bell didn't play in 2018. That was James Conner's first year as the starter. Conner was the starter for Pittsburgh. I was like, get a Justice Hill, a speed back there to pair with James Conner, and you've got yourself a dynamic duo there. And the Steelers let him go to the Ravens, but in the 4th round. So, okay, let's go to wide receiver here. Okay, so the Steelers wide receiver room. We'll go kind of like the projected starters. Again, our lads has these guys in here. DK Metcalf, new acquisition via trade. Robert Woods signed as an unrestricted free agent. Calvin Austin III. You've got Roman Wilson. You've got Scotty Miller, Ben Skoranek, Rock Taylor, who's an undrafted rookie, Brandon Johnson, Lance McCutcheon. I liked him a lot a couple preseasons ago for the Rams. And it is Montana Lamonius Craig. Best name in football right now, I think. as kind of way down on the depth chart for the Steelers. That's a good group. It's not a great group, but it's a good group and led by DK Metcalf. The Ravens, they've got Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, who just signed a contract extension with the Ravens. DeAndre Hopkins as their free agent pickup this year to round out the room there a little bit. Devontae Walker, Tylan Wallace, LaShawnte Wester, Malik Cunningham, Keith Kirkwood, Anthony Miller, former Steeler, Xavier Gilroy, and Jamal Banks, who were undrafted free agent signings this year. And then Dayton Wade at wide receiver for the Ravens. That's a group there. Which wide receiver room are you taking here, Corey? We just fired out the names, but I mean, let's look at those, maybe the top 4, 5, or 6 guys, honestly. Which room are you taking?
I have to take the Steelers. You just sat there and read off all of those names, and I'm looking at them, and I'm looking at the top 3 lines, and there's 12 wide receivers on the Ravens squad, and they're all number 2s and number 3s. DeAndre Hopkins is
Zay
way
Flowers
past.
is a 2?
Yeah, he's a 2.
Oh,
I know they gave him a contract, but in this Baltimore offense, I don't like any receiver because they don't throw to their receivers well. They always throw to their tight ends. So, it's always, the receivers always having to fight, the tight ends for targets and things like that. So it takes away from what the receivers can actually do in Baltimore. So in Baltimore, you're never going to get the numbers that you might in, let's say, a Sean McVay offense or a Kyle Shanahan offense where you're throwing the ball around. So you don't necessarily need a high-end number 1, so to speak, because I definitely wouldn't call DeAndre Hopkins a number 1, high-end number 1 at this point.
No, he's past that.
Looking through those top 3 or 4, I mean, I still like the Steelers. I think more because I have familiarity with the Scotty Miller in our offense, the Ben Skoranek in the Steelers offense. Just having familiarity of seeing them catch the ball, seeing them catch in clutch situations. I know that they're gonna perform at a high level when it matters most. Whereas I've seen the Ravens receivers fail time and time again.
Corey, I'm sorry. You got to take off the black and gold colored glasses, man. You got to do it. This Ravens wide receiver room is maybe a top half of the league, probably top 20 receiver room, and the Steelers are much further down the list, in my opinion. Zay Flowers had 116 targets, 74 catches, 1,059 yards last year. He was 29th in receptions. Sorry, let me go in and check the yardage here. He was 19th in yards last year at out of all receivers, pass catchers. So that's a pretty clear wide receiver 1 to me. And then the guy they just signed, Rashad Bateman, where did he come from? I mean, the Minnesota product that was Rashad Bateman that I was pretty high on coming out of college, I was like, oh, no, it didn't work. The Ravens can't develop receivers. It's over. And last year, when Zay Flowers was out for that final regular season game, he ate the Steelers alive last year, deep down the field. What he does extremely well. He's a 2, a solid 2. I would take Rashad Bateman over any of the Steelers receivers right now, other than DK Metcalf. And I would obviously do the same with Zay Flowers then. And then DeAndre Hopkins as your 3 right now, that feels pretty good to me. So I'm taking the Ravens here pretty handily at wide receiver, in my opinion.
I like what you're saying about the top 3. I still like the depth of what the Steelers have better.
Sure.
And I think that within this system that the top 3 for the Steelers can really thrive. I think we're really going to start to see, with a quarterback like Aaron Rodgers, we're really going to start to see this offense open up. We're going to start to see a lot of those throws over the middle that we were missing over the last couple of seasons, and you're going to see the production out of the receivers that you did see last year, or the last couple of years.
All right. Yeah. I mean, a little projection never hurt anybody. I think that it's definitely possible that they're better than, as a collective, than I'm giving them credit for. So we will see there. Tight end. tight end is where I'm going to give the Steelers depth the edge here. And I really like Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely as a combo, but I don't know. We started to see a real slip in Mark Andrews as a consistent producer at tight end last year over the course of the whole season. Whether that's injuries catching up with him, he's older obviously now. I don't know. I like Pat Fryermuth, Darnell Washington, Connor Hayward right now is the number 3 there. They've got JJ Galbraith, who is or Galbraith. I don't know how you would pronounce that. He was an undrafted free agent this year. And then for the Ravens, it's Mark Andrews, Isaiah Likely, Charlie Kohler, and Zaire Mitchell Payton. And Sam Pitts, who is an undrafted rookie free agent this year too. So they got 5 tight ends right now. The Steelers would have had 5 tight ends, but their free agent acquisition this year, Donald Parham Jr. is hurt. It sounds like they're probably going to add to that room. I wouldn't be surprised if they do at some point. So projecting out a little bit, the youth on the Steelers, the untapped potential of Darnell Washington, I'm giving the edge to the Steelers here, just barely at tight end. But what say you?
I think that the two backup tight ends, Darnell Washington and Isaiah Likely, are the 2 best kept secrets in all of football. Isaiah Likely has started to show out last year, and I think that if Mark Andrews continues to slip up, you may see a overtaking of the guard there for tight end 1 in Baltimore. Isaiah Likely has really started to show out. I'm hoping that Darnell Washington can do the same for the Steelers because I feel like he can. And then if he can develop into that bigger tight end 2 target that's not the full attention of the defense like a Pat Freiermuth would be, or having the combination of the receivers and the tight ends on the field where you can get a 6'9" tight end open over a field. So I like Darnell Washington a lot. I wish they would get him the ball more. I think that he's got a ton of potential that is just untapped. I like the Steelers. I like the Steelers room better here as well. I like Connor Hayward as that H-back. He's that jack of all trades. He's got some receiving ability. He can obviously run the ball. So I like their tight end room better. However, I think that Isaiah Likely's star is probably the highest out of all of the tight ends in both rooms.
Isaiah Likely only had 477 receiving yards last year. Just throwing out some stats. And Pat Freiermuth had 653. That was 6th among tight ends. It's not bad. It was an underrated season in a year that he was barely utilized. I mean, that's why the Steelers gave him the contract. They said, you did this 7 touchdowns too for him last year. You did this with that quarterback play, nobody targeting you in the middle of the field, and we're going to improve the quarterback situation. Freiermuth is probably on his way. I'll make the bold prediction right now. Pat Freiermuth is a better tight end than Mark Andrews in 2025. More productive.
That's not a far stretch.
Yeah. Andrews had 673 yards receiving last year. Granted, he was coming off some injury. Freiermuth had 653. So that's 20 yards difference between the two. Freiermuth had 65 catches. Andrews had, Freiermuth had, 65 catches. Mark Andrews had 55. So Andrews more efficient. He's used more vertically than Freiermuth was last year. Freiermuth's going to be used a lot more vertically, I think, this year too. So, I feel pretty good about giving the edge to the Steelers there. All right, offensive line. This is fun here for the Steelers. It's a lot of youth here, and then the Ravens are they lean more on their veterans, especially on the outside. But at left tackle, you got Broderick Jones probably making his career debut, more or less. I know he played 1 game there as a rookie, but career debut at left tackle where the Steelers drafted him to play. Isaac Seumalo is the veteran at left guard. Zach Frazier at center. Mason McCormick at right guard, second-year player like Zach Frazier. And then Troy Fautanu, second-year player as well, but really this is his first year because he missed all of last year with an injury. Behind those guys, you've got Dylan Cook, Nick Broker, Spencer Anderson, Max Sharping, and Calvin Anderson as kind of the higher end backups there. I don't want to go through all 12 guys on the roster here for each team. Ronnie Stanley, left tackle, vested veteran. Andrew Voorhees at left guard for the Ravens. Tyler Linderbaum, great center for the Ravens. Daniel Falele at right guard, and then Roger Rosengarten entering his second season at right tackle. And behind those guys, you've got Joseph Noteboom, Garrett Dellinger, Nick Samak, Ben Cleveland, and Emory Jones Jr., two rookies as backups at the left guard and right tackle position. So a lot of youth there as well. Which offensive line do you like better? Do you give the edge to in this roster rivalry matchup here?
That's definitely an easy one. The Ravens get it for sure here.
Okay. Yep.
Just their running attack just trumps everything in this situation, and that's where I feel the biggest difference between these two teams is right there in that front offensive line. That's the biggest difference. That's where you see the marked difference between watching the Steelers and watching the Ravens.
The coaching plays a huge role in that for me. The Ravens are so consistent at getting just solid, good production out of their offensive line, even if they're rotating guys in and out every year. I think the Steelers could be nipping at their heels by the end of the season if everything goes right for this offensive line. But if you look at it right now, you've got to give the edge to Baltimore for sure.
Yep.
All right. We both gave the edge to the Steelers at tight end. We're both giving the edge to the Ravens at offensive line. So our scores for the offense for each team here, you gave 3 points to the Steelers offense and 2 points to the Ravens offense. I gave 4 points to the Ravens offense and 1 point to the Steelers offense for that side of the ball. And the defense is where things will even out for me probably, but right now I think it's pretty clear that the Ravens offense is better than the Steelers. When you look at the group overall before we move to defense, do you think the Steelers are kind of on par with them outside of just the dynamic quarterback situation that Baltimore has?
I think the only difference between the two rosters is that the Steelers haven't had the continuity of roster of the top end of their roster like the Ravens have. Okay. I think that this is going to be one of their glue years where their guys really start to gel together. You really start to see a lot of better play now that they've turned a lot of this roster over, the Steelers. I'm looking at this roster compared to the last couple of years. It looks way more complete from top to bottom than it has over the last couple of years, especially because Ben Roethlisberger's contract is not hanging over the contract or not hanging over the team anymore, handcuffing them financially, and handcuffing them from their ability to bring in quality backup veterans. So now this team it feels like it's more balanced from top to bottom. However, they just don't have the experience together yet to really make it show. And I think that's really the big difference where Baltimore shines, is that they've really had a couple of years to make this roster gel together, and it's showing on the field.
All righty, let's talk about defense now then, and we'll speed through this part a little bit faster than we did the offense. Let's start on the defensive line, Corey, and the Steelers have Cam Hayward, obviously. I think it's pretty safe to say that, like, career-wise, he's probably got the best career of any active defensive lineman right now. In the league, outside of maybe Cam Jordan, maybe the sack production for Cam Jordan's been higher. But I don't know, Cam Hayward, man, him and Chris Jones are the cream of the crop, even at Cam Hayward's age right now. So, and you'll probably get, like, you can probably rank a few younger guys ahead of Cam at this stage of their career, like Dexter Lawrence. But I mean, Cameron Hayward is the man at defensive tackle still. Keanu Benton entering his third year. Derek Harmon, rookie draft pick, is going to anchor the left defensive end spot. He was named the starter already,
Name
which
the
is pretty
starter.
clear.
Yes, sir.
Absolutely. Y.A. Black is another draft pick. He's going to play at the nose or the 4-eye. That probably end up being the nose, but Isaiah Loudermilk, Daniel Ekawale, DeMarvin Leal, Lee Logan, and Dean Lowry kind of make up the core there of the defensive line for the Steelers. And then for the Ravens, it is Broderick Washington, Travis Jones, Nadi Matabuike, CJ Ravenel, John Jenkins, Aeneas Peebles, who is a rookie. And then you've got I can't remember what they call him, but I call him Addy Odolei. Jason Jones and CJ Okoye at defensive line for the Ravens. This goes to the Steelers pretty handily, right? They're the better defensive line.
I mean, there's only one name on there that really scares me, and that's Matabuike. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I'd definitely give it to the Steelers.
Yeah, I agree. That doesn't take long to reach that conclusion. The Steelers have probably, Corey, the best defensive line in football, especially when you include this next group, the edge rushers, TJ Watt, Alex Highsmith, Nick Herbig, and now Jack Sawyer for the Steelers, and the Ravens at outside linebacker, Kyle Van Noy, Adafe Owe, Tavius Robinson, Mike Green, a rookie, so that looks pretty good, or a guy that they're gonna hope jumps into the elite category, and then Adisa Isaac and David Ajabo are the other guys of note there in that room. This goes to the Steelers as well, right? As long as TJ isn't traded.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. I mean, I like the depth, the youth and the depth that the Ravens have, but I still like the youth and the depth the Steelers have better. When you got Nick Herbig coming into his second year, Jack Sawyer coming in as a rookie, Nick Herbig's coming in his third year. Is it third year? Yeah. And Jack Sawyer coming into his rookie year. I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what the depth can do to keep TJ fresh. And if he gets that extension, that's going to be the big assumption, is that there's going to be a lot of rest involved to keep him fresh longer in his career.
Yep. I mean, I think it's not outside of normal thought process here to say that Nick Herbig is a better pure pass rusher than anybody that the Ravens have on their roster. And he's the third best pass rusher on the Steelers. Yeah. So I got to ride with Pittsburgh here for sure.
Although I am intrigued by Mike Green's ability,
yes, for sure.
However, we'll see if he can even get to the field.
Yep. We'll see. Inside linebacker, the Ravens have one of the best in the league in Roquan Smith. They've got Trenton Simpson as their slated number 2 there. Teddy Buchanan is a rookie draft pick this year. Jake Hummel, William Quenkio. I'm horrible with these names. And then Jay Higgins is an undrafted free agent there for the Ravens. The Steelers, they've got Patrick Queen and Peyton Wilson, second-year player, and then Patrick Queen, who was their big free agent pickup last year. Cole Holcomb's back healthy. Malik Harrison is a former Raven. You got Mark Robinson, Carson Bruner, the 7th-round pick for the Steelers. Bruner was this last year. Which linebacker room do you like better between the Steelers and the Ravens here?
I like from top to bottom, I like the Steelers inside linebacker room better.
Yeah.
It's the depth. It's coming down to the depth. Once you get beyond the first line of what the Ravens have, the depth looks suspect. So and that goes to say last year, like for the Ravens, they were pretty lucky in terms of health. They're going to get lucky again to keep all of these top line guys in there producing like they are. They got to hope that depth really starts to develop. That's for sure.
Yep, I agree. And from the Steelers side of things, Patrick Queen gets another year in the system to learn it. That system never changes, right? Because it's Mike Tomlin. And he just cycles through coordinators who are going to do what he does, but add a little bit of twist to what he does. Peyton Wilson's going to get better this year. Look for Peyton Wilson's kind of my true breakout player pick for the Steelers. Like, this is a guy who I think statistically could be a top 10, 15 linebacker by the end of the year. The way it looks like he's added weight. If he stays healthy, combine that with the skills that you see in coverage and just the ranginess, he's ready to take a step forward. So I'm excited about him. And then I like Malik Harrison as a 3-4 inside guy, and Cole Holcomb in that same range too. I like those guys.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see if Mark Robinson can hold on for yet another year.
I think Bruner knocks him out, and I think if he makes the roster, because Mark Robinson, he gives you that extra hit on special teams that Cole Holcomb doesn't, right? But Carson Bruner does the same thing. So I don't know. Maybe they give the rookie draft pick a chance there. Let's move on to the secondary. This is where things get interesting from my perspective. Let's look at the corners for the Steelers. Joey Porter Jr. entering his third season. Darius Slay, picked up by the Steelers in free agency this year after the Eagles cut him. He's 34 years old. And then you got Corey Trice and James Pierre. And then right now it's Kyler McMichael and Deshaun Jameson at the third string, if you will, at outside corner. And then in the nickel, Beanie Bishop Jr., Brandon Eccles, Dante Kent fighting it out there. And Eccles might play a little bit more on the outside as well, but that's just where our lads has him as the second string nickel. And then you compare that with the Ravens, and the Ravens cornerbacks are Nate Wiggins entering his second year. They've got Chidobe Awuzie coming from Tennessee as their starting right cornerback. Marlon Humphrey in the nickel. One of the best corners in the league is Marlon Humphrey still, but he just plays in the nickel for them. TJ Tampa entering his second year. You got Bilal Cohn coming in as a rookie, and Robert Longerbeam as well. So I don't know. This one's tough for me to pick who I like better. The Ravens typically field a more consistent secondary with their coaching, and I think Michael Orr's gonna, or it's not Michael. I can't remember what his first name is, but their defensive coordinator, Orr is his last name. He's gonna have them ready to play. Where do you go though? Is it Michael Orr? Okay. Okay. So, which group are you going with here, Corey?
This is a really tight race to me. I think both secondaries are very, very well coached. It's a matter of what comes down to the talent, and both secondaries are loaded with talent. Boy, I mean, this is like the age-old question: who's better between Ed Reed and Troy Polamalu? Like they're both awesome. So like, how could you go wrong picking either one of them?
There's questions about both sides, but
right.
But yeah, some of the guys up near the top of the depth chart, they're fun for both teams.
Yeah, I like the names, and I like the depth. I like the names at the top of the list that the Ravens have with Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks. I think that safety duo is going to be absolutely deadly.
Yeah, we'll get to safeties next for sure, and that's a fun one too. But
I think those corners, though. I think the corner room. I got to give that to the Steelers.
I agree. It's close, and I might like the Ravens. Well, I don't know. Do I like the Ravens' depth better? I don't know.
No, because once you get past Joey Porter Jr. and Marlon Humphrey, like the Nate Wiggins, Darius Slay conversation, I like Darius Slay better there. And then
I was not a big fan of Wiggins coming out. I think a lot of people think he's going to take a leap, though.
I think this is the year to see if he's. But yeah, I think the same as you do. Or Darius Washington? Didn't he just have an injury?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry, and he's
at safety too. We're getting the safety here in a second.
Yeah, no, you're good. It's Awuzie that I like. He played for the Bengals for a couple years now.
That's a good pickup for them.
And then Tennessee, he is a good pickup, but he's closing in on 30. I don't know about him personally.
But they've got him in. They've got him inside in the nickel.
No, they've got him as their starting right corner because they play Marlon Humphrey in the nickel.
Okay, I see how. Yeah, I see how they got it listed. Okay. Oof, outside.
Yeah.
I don't know I think by the end of the camp, they'll probably have that switched.
Probably.
Because Humphrey's been on the outside for them.
Yeah, he's kind of their rotational piece. He does whatever they ask him to do.
Yeah.
He's more versatile than anybody the Steelers have, but I don't know, when you go 4 deep on the Steelers, I like that 4 deep better than I like the Ravens 4 deep. Just a little bit. All right. So we both give it to the Steelers.
That might change though. I mean, there was that rumor on the I don't know if you saw the X post earlier about who the Steelers were rumored to be shopping for. Jalen Ramsey and who's the other one?
Jair Alexander. Yeah.
Jair Alexander. Yeah.
So, if one of those two guys lands, it's pretty clearly Pittsburgh. That's better.
Oh yeah, definitely.
All right, safeties to wrap this thing up. Kyle Hamilton, Malachi Starks, Ardarius Washington, Sanusi Kane. He was on the roster last year. He gets elevated to like a primary backup, but he was a special teamer last year for the Ravens. And then on the Steelers side of things, it's Minkah Fitzpatrick, it's Deshaun Elliott, Juan Thornhill, Miles Killebrew as the 4 guys there before you get to the real depth behind those guys. I think I got to give the edge to the Ravens here with Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks. I love him. I think he's going to step in and be an immediate impact player. So I'm taking Kyle Hamilton over Minkah Fitzpatrick at the stages of their careers. And I think I'd slightly give the edge to Elliott over Starks just because Starks is a rookie, but by the end of the year, that may be pretty close. And then depth wise, Ardarius Washington's good. Juan Thornhill's pretty good, but give me the Kyle Hamilton all pro type play as the tiebreaker here for these two groups.
Yeah, the Miles Killebrew, with him still there providing all-pro special teams play. I'd still give Kyle Hamilton and Malachi Starks the nod slightly, like you did. I don't have a single argument with what you said there. In fact, I think every bit of that's true.
Sure.
Ardarius Washington being hurt for the year does hurt, and that's why I think the Steelers' depth at the safety position gives them the leg up. Again, it just comes down to the depth.
Yeah, it does. And you know what? We have the same exact thought process for the defense. We have the Steelers 4-1 on defense, roster wise. Now, the Ravens coaching on defense, the way they end up working together as a team, that unit is right up near the top all the time. But talent wise on the roster, I think you do go with Pittsburgh. So we'll see which one ends up being the better unit by the end of the year. But I think you do have to give talent wise the edge to Pittsburgh. They're just more talented across the board on defense. We'll see how it plays out in the matchups this year. I still think the Ravens are the better team overall. And then let's not be, we'd be remiss to not jump in here as Steeler fans. It's been this way for a couple years now, Corey. Just nobody's been willing to admit it. But now that Justin Tucker's no longer a member of the Ravens, I mean, Chris Boswell's been the better kicker for 2 to 3 years now, low key. But now
Not
it's official.
key.
The Pittsburgh Steelers have the better special teams kicking game than the Baltimore Ravens do now.
I am super excited to see Pittsburgh Steelers prize free agent for last year, Cameron Johnston, take the field for his first official punt. But I mean, Chris Boswell, the Wizard of Boz, what can you say? Entering another year, I'm expecting him to just nail everything like he has his whole career. He's not only become the best Steelers kicker in history, but he's definitely one of the better ones in NFL history too. He's really starting to climb that ladder. So appreciate that man for what you see, because he's not going to be around forever.
That's right. And when kickers fall off, they fall off.
They fall off.
Yes. So, hey, good stuff, Corey. This was a long show. We definitely appreciate anybody sticking with us through this lengthy show, but it was worth it breaking down these rosters. And we had a lot to talk about with minicamp. The next few iterations, we won't have as much to talk about unless the Steelers make a signing or something like that. So we'll get through them a little bit quicker, but it was important to hit that news bit before we got into the roster rivalry here. But okay, let's make a final note here, Corey. Which roster's better, Baltimore or Pittsburgh? The way you've got them ranked here, I think you'd be giving the edge to Pittsburgh.
I really would. I
Okay.
think the Steelers have a more complete roster from top to bottom. It may not have the same amount of top end talent that the Ravens roster has, but I think that the Steelers roster is more solidly and completely built.
All right. I think the edge at quarterback is so stark that you've got to give the Ravens I guess the title of better team, but roster depth. It's kind of like when you talked Eagles versus Chiefs last year, right, in the Super Bowl, and that one got out of hand, right? I think that if you played that game 10 more times, the Chiefs would be a lot closer than they were. But roster depth won out in the Super Bowl there. But I think in the end for Steelers Ravens this year, I think the Ravens are going to be the better team because I think I trust their coaches to fill in the gaps a little bit better than I trust Pittsburgh's positional coaches to do that, especially on offensive line and in the secondary. And then I think that I give the edge to that Lamar Jackson led offense and that wide receiver room and that offensive line for Baltimore that puts them over the edge as the better team overall for me, although it's closer than people would think if on the outside. So very good stuff. Corey, what you got coming up before we head out of here and close this thing down?
Got more content coming from you, fresh daily on Fans First Steel City. Check us out there. Obviously, check us out on Steel Curtain Network, everywhere you get your stuff, all your podcasts, all your articles, everything, fansfirstsportsnetwork.com, all that good stuff. Oh, and definitely make sure you check out the Talk the Plank 3K podcast for all the Pirates, all the Pirates content. Pirates are starting to claw their way back into some kind of semblance. They haven't completely died yet, so
they're fun now, at least, right?
They're fun to watch. Pulse Gains is much watch TV. Bailey Falter is quietly putting together a very, very, very solid year.
Yep. O'Neal Cruz looks good. He's improving every month, it seems like. So yeah, good stuff there. Check that out. Follow Corey at Steely_McPitt on X. Follow me at the Bets 93. And I've got a series going on for the Steelers right now on their best and worst case scenarios for each position group on the roster through the offensive line and the quarterback positions. Those are live on the website, and you'll be getting the running back room next on the docket there for that series. So check that out. And that's going to do it for us here on the Steelers Fix. Until next time, have a good one.